Welcome to this lesson. And in this lesson, we will be talking about stellar evolution, which is the evolution of a star from its origin to its end stage. Just like as humans, stars also have its birth and death. And the stars begins its life in a place called a nebula. Nebulae are regions in space. There is a lot of dust, there is a lot of gas particles, and the sorts. So there are many nebulae, and stars originate in these nebulae. And in this nebulae, when there is a variation in gravity in a particular region and mass starts to come together because of that gravity, the temperature increases. And as mass comes into this point and the temperature increases, and once it reaches a point of point where nuclear fusion can begin, that is when a star takes its birth. And the first stage is called a protostar. So this is an artistic impression of how a protostar would look like. And there is this central region where the nuclear fusion is happening and matter is coming into this protostar, and the star accretes more and more mass and it becomes massive. And depending upon the availability of the mass in that particular region, the stars could be a small star or a very massive star. Our sun is a medium-sized star. So after this protostar stage ends, the main sequence of a star comes. Our sun is in its main sequence right now, and in the main sequence star, it is no more accreting matter or attracting matter into it from the surroundings. It is sustaining itself with nuclear fusion, and primarily hydrogen is being transformed into helium. And once the hydrogen runs out, the helium will fuse it and to form carbon, so on and so forth. So depending upon the matter that is in the star, the time it will take to cross the main sequence will vary as well. Once the main sequence is over, the next stage is called a red giant stage. To explain red giants, let us look into a little bit of theory. So, in a star, there are mainly two forces at play. The first force is the gravitational force of attraction that tries to bring every mass to the center of the star. And the second force is a force that is pushing the matter outwards as a result of the processes inside the star. So, these two forces balance each other out, and that is why a star remains in its form. It can keep its form rather. So once the fusion process slows down, so once the amount of matter, that the fusible matter runs low in a star, the pressure outwards, the outward pressure will win over the gravitational pull, and the star will become very big. And that stage is called the red giant stage. And our sun will also become a red giant in a long time. And so that is the next stage in a star's evolution. For stars that are not that massive, once the star becomes a red giant, the outermost region cannot be held to the body of the main body of the star because of gravity. So the outer shells will detach itself from the main body of the star, and that's the next stage in the life of low mass stars. We'll get to the point where we discuss about the end sequence of high mass stars, but for stars like our sun, the planetary nebula stage is the next stage. It is called the planetary nebula, but it is a misnomer. It has nothing to do with the planets, unfortunately. The very first astronomers who looked at planetary nebulae through very primitive telescopes found that it looks somewhat like a planet, but a nebula also. So they named it planetary nebula. It has nothing to do with planets. So as I have mentioned, these regions, the outside regions, are where the the outer shells of the stars are detached from itself, and at the middle we can see the central core of the star, and this core will become a white dwarf. So the white dwarf are very dense, the remnant of stars, and they are very massive, but the size is very small. It can have mass as much as our sun, but the size would be comparable to that of Earth or Moon. So those are white dwarfs. These white dwarfs are no longer no, the white dwarfs no longer contain nuclear fusion. They do not have nuclear fusion inside happening, and they will cool down eventually and become black dwarfs. So this is the cycle. This is the evolutionary cycle, evolutionary stages of a low mass star. If a star is very massive, the star would become a red supergiant. Rather than a red giant, it will go beyond that and it will become a red supergiant. And there are a lot of processes that happening inside a red supergiant. And the central core of this star, as I've mentioned, it will shed the outer layers and the inner core will collapse in on itself and explode as a supernova. And this supernova is one of the end stages of a star, and there is a stage called a neutron star, which is an end stage of a high mass star. Neutron stars contain neutrons specifically, and these are very interesting materials. They are very dense, very small. They might be approximately 20 to 25 kilometers in radius, but very massive. And they'll have very peculiar characteristics such as very high magnetic field. They might be rotating. They are some of the neutron stars emit very high radio waves from their poles. So they are very interesting materials. And neutron stars is an end stage of a high mass star. And if the central core is very massive, maybe 4 to 8 times or more massive than our sun, these central cores will collapse in on itself and become a black hole. So black holes are the densest materials in the universe. Black holes can attract anything into it, and once it crosses the threshold of a black hole, it will not be able to get out even the light. So this is a representation of a black hole, and the black holes do not emit any light. This light that we are seeing is the light sent out by the particles that are being pulled into the black hole. So in general, so this is a general representation of the evolutionary stages of a star. So every star begins its life as a nebula, and if it's a low mass star, it will go to the main sequence and it will become a red giant, and it will shed its outer layers and it will become a planetary nebulae, and then it will end up as a white dwarf and eventually a black dwarf. If there is more matter in the nebula for a star to form, it will become a main sequence star and it will be very massive than our sun, and it will go to a red supergiant and it will explode as a supernova. And there are two ends to a supernova. One is a neutron star, and if the star is very massive, then it will be going up it will end up as a black hole. So this is basically the life cycle of a star. It starts as a nebula and it will end its life as a white dwarf or a neutron star or a black hole. And that's about the stellar evolution. Thank you.